Welcome to the Flora and Order Time Chat. I am here with Ingrid Jones, journal writing facilitator at Journal with Ingrid. I'm so excited to be talking with her as a huge journaler myself. I started journaling in 1996 when I was 11. So I have many, many journals, and we're going to be talking about what does journaling mean? How do people get into it? How do you make time for it? And what do you do with all of those journals if you are keeping them? So let me introduce or have Ingrid introduce herself and tell us, how did you get into this amazing occupation?
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here as well. And yes, I'm all about journal writing. How did I get into it? It was an accident. I had never planned on making journal writing my whole thing or my whole focus on my business. But I always just found writing to be cathartic. And similar to you, I started at a really young age of early on, it was diary writing for me, which was trying to capture moments and events and records of my life or my day-to-day things or the highlights of the day. And then as I moved more through my teenage years, it fell naturally into more journaling of pouring out my thoughts and emotions onto the page and just getting everything down. And that's, I just journaled like that for a long time. Of just sort of like dumping thoughts down, that stream of consciousness. I'd feel relieved and a little lighter most of the time, but then I'd go about my day kind of thing. And it wasn't until about maybe like 2015, around that time, when I was going through a bit of a tough time and I was journaling away, and I just had this really strong feeling one day of like, I feel like I'm writing about the same thing over and over again. And it was strong enough for me to actually flick back through my journal entries. And when I did that, I was just, a little bit confronted of how many times I was writing about the same problem in the same way, but not really doing anything about it. And that made me go, okay, I'm sure I know there's power in journal writing, but I'm not using it in a way that's genuinely moving me forward. So that's where I became curious to change the way I journaled for myself. So I didn't know what that would look like at the time, but I just remember promising to not put my pen down at any journal session until I'd sort of changed the way I'd ended my journal sessions. So I didn't know what that would look like. I didn't know what that would look like. But in the end, I started to ask myself different questions. So from going from a brain dump to just putting things down, I started to question things in a way that would slowly help me move forward. Over time, and it definitely wasn't overnight, over time, a bit of a consistent framework had formed for myself. And what I noticed, that I just really fell in love with journaling because of how empowered I felt by the end of each session. And so from there, it got to a point where it felt so good that I started talking to people about it, and I had an opportunity to run it for an event, and it was my first time of running it for a group of people, and being able to go around the room for these very stressed, overworked, tired parents at the end of the journal session to ask them, how they're feeling now. They were just like, I feel relieved and lighter and empowered. And so I got to that point where if I can help people to make a shift through this particular step-by-step framework I'd created and not know what they'd written about, then there's something in it. So that's what led me into, becoming a journal writing facilitator, on top of being a primary school teacher and a life coach. So I think those two skills together are very complementary for a sort of help yourself style journal framework.
Oh, amazing. I really like what you said there about, it had originated from your tough times, because I find during tough times I just write like a mad woman. Like it's just so many pages, and I can reflect on like that's been a hard time versus this is a better time, because there's fewer pages. How do you feel that like people how does journaling change the way we look at time in that way?
Time as in the passing of time, you mean? Like, as in the different phases of our lives?
Yeah. The different like situations that we go through, and those times versus those more pleasant times.
Yeah, I feel like whether you're journaling in a challenging time or even in a pleasant time, if you're journaling in a way where you're looking for meaning and purpose, you'll always find it fulfilling. It's just that the tougher times we probably need it a little more. And so I see that there's this beautiful thing about it. It's not time that's the healer. It's what you do with the time. So I like saying a challenging time is to journal in a way that I know I'm going to grow from it, so that I can look back and go, oh, I'm so grateful I was so annoyed about that thing, because now I've realized this about myself and now I can do it differently. So if I'm constantly self-reflecting in a way that allows me to have these insights about myself and patterns of behavior or what I actually value, so the direction that I can move towards, it makes the next chunk of time even better, because I'm applying things that I've discovered myself, and I've found my own meaning that comes with a sense of happiness or fulfillment. And I just want to say, like, with happiness and fulfillment, I'm not talking about happiness that we have to be like that cheery mood all the time. But sometimes even in a tough time, making meaning can feel amazing, even if you're not through it yet, if that makes sense.
And so the questions that you were asking yourself that really changed your journaling practice, I assume now you've just got such a wealth of questions like that you've been adding to them as you've gone on. Do they come to you quite intuitively, or is it something that you've like found over your journaling sessions and kind of added to a swipe file or something? I don't know, like that.
You know what? The framework that I've created is open-ended and it stays the same. The questions have basically stayed the same in a way of, once I've got everything down, the next lot of questions helps me to go a little deeper, to go, what's my part in it? How am I feeling? And what am I doing or not doing that adds to it? So because it's so open, it enables me to explore my emotions, my actions, as well as my thinking based on what I've already written. And then I can take that and go, well, what have I discovered and what can I do with it, kind of thing. So it keeps moving me forward. So I don't need to keep looking for individual journal prompts or specific questions, because whatever I'm dealing with at the beginning will guide me along the way. And then I can take my discoveries and go, okay, what's my intention? Like, what am I going to actually weave into my life? From what I've learned from my journal session.
And for you, away from it being your business, how much time daily or weekly are you journaling, would you say?
Yeah, I journal most days, and the time frame changes. So sometimes 15 minutes, sometimes 20. If I've got like a lot on my plate, maybe a little bit longer, but usually around the 15 to 20 minute mark. And I journal via a timer. So I set a timer, and when I facilitate sessions, that runs for very specific timeframes for each step, but the timer can still be changed. So even if I've just got 15 minutes, I know how to break down each of the steps so that I can place equal importance on letting go. And then I can place equal importance when that timer finishes, it means move on to the next step. And I can place equal importance on going a bit deeper to valuing learning from it, because it's very easy when you're going through a tough time to just sort of dump stresses and worries on the page, but just stay there. And sometimes when you are just writing about things that are most challenging and emotional, it can heighten it, because you're taking what's on your mind and you're focusing on it in quite a clear way. So a timer is like a non-emotive friend that just goes, all right, you've done this, move yourself on. So we sort of need that support as well, to just keep moving, to go, oh, you've done the hard part, now what? And you've done that part, oh, now what? And then it always shifts people into sort of like a feeling of appreciation back into their heart.
I really like that about a timer being a supportive friend, because it is such a support to many people in getting through things. So why not apply it to your journaling practice as well? And what you were saying there about reflecting, yes, I can see that adding a bit more reflection to a journaling session would make it more productive in the productive kind of sense of not being stagnant and stuck in those thoughts.
For me, it doesn't take long to make a shift. So we have over 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day going around in our head. over and over again. Doesn't mean they're all brand new. That's just us looping around and around. And so writing, it like lights up a part of your brain that filters out a lot of information you're normally receiving. So it makes you really present with yourself and with whatever it is you're working on. It is also a left brain, right brain activity. So you're engaging both sides of the brain by moving your pen and paper. The same studies aren't found with typing at the moment. So the actual thing of handwriting, your left and right, that creative side is at work. It sort of opens up your intuition to fast track solving things. And so I'm only telling you all of this because often I will journal in the morning before I start my work day, so that I'm like really, I've reset myself, so I'm really far more productive than if I don't.
Yes, yes, I love that. Yeah, yeah. And how often would you say you're reflecting on what you've written, or are you not, like old entries from like years ago or whatnot?
Rarely. Like I'm not going back to reread my journal entries. Like I don't at the moment. Every now and then I might flick back through my current book that I'm sort of filling in, but that's just me. So there's no rules around this kind of thing. I always feel like there's part of it that's just so personal. If it works for people, I'd say go do it. I will notice sometimes that I'll be writing and going, oh, that's come up again. Or sometimes I'll have a week where nearly the same thing comes up every day because I know I'm working on it. But I'm so okay with that now, because each time I do, I get a slightly different perspective. I'm growing into a new idea a little bit more, and that takes time. So I know that by journaling, I don't have this pressure on myself that I have to fix everything straight away, that it has to then be perfect in my life. It's just a growing into something style thing. So I'm quite okay if the same issues come up. It's just that I don't need to go back and read it all. I have to go, am I taking action? Did I say I was going to do what I said I was going to do last time? Or is it I need a different step forward?
Yeah, I when I was journaling quite a lot on something that was really troubling me, I got to the point where I was quite annoyed that I was still writing about this, and that prompted me to take action on it, because I was like, why am I still writing about this? Like, so it was a good, like, kind of habitual reminder of like, no, it's time to take action because this is getting annoying. Yeah, it's very powerful. And I like what you were saying there about it previously, about it being a productive thing to do before work, because then your head is clear. Did you want to say a bit more about that?
I just think there is so much power to writing than what we even realize.
Yeah.
Just the connection between our brain and mind and getting things down. Sometimes I'll feel like the weight is taken off my mind or my shoulders, kind of thing, as I'm writing. So I just have learnt to value it, and that's why for me it's sort of a non-negotiable in my life to have it most days of the week.
Yeah.
Even the day. Oh, sorry. I was going to say, for the day, if I've had a really challenging day, the first thing I would do is reach for my journal, and so that I've shifted that stress before I go and do something else, or so that I've reset to enjoy my evening.
Yes, such a great tool. It's something that I suggest to clients too, and obviously working with people who are upskilling on their time management skills. Something I hear a lot is like, I don't have time for that, or, oh, it's going to be tricky to get that in, or where does that fit? I assume you kind of you get the same kind of question, so I'd be curious to hear what your response is to that, to like, I don't have time.
I would start to go track where you use your time. The amount of time that you can get lost in scrolling or even watching shows and things like that. If you just go, if I would feel better in 15 minutes is, in the scheme of a whole day, is not long to make a shift. And so for that, sometimes I'm just really flexible. I can journal on the tram or train or public transport. I can journal in a cafe, or, I don't have to do it at a set place, even though that routine is wonderful, but I'm also flexible with the busyness of life. So I just think once you've valued it, it's just, okay, go. And then find an accountability friend, to go, I've journaled today, day one, or, or I'm just doing it twice a week, but just tell someone when you've done it.
Yeah. And because with your timer, what's the minimum amount you would go for? Or is 15 minutes like that's the sweet spot?
Yeah. Again, I'm sure you could make a shift in 10 minutes if that's all you had to one go, get it all down, and then ask yourself, what can I learn from this? So if you just ask those 2 questions, you can do that in as much. It depends on the problem. If it's a small problem, you just need to get it down to have that vent and then go, okay, now what's my part in it? What can I learn from it? Is really quickly, that's enough to sort of move you in a different direction and start thinking about solutions.
Yes, yeah.
The other thing that writing does is it enhances your memory. Like, so because you're gaining clarity, so the people that are really stressed and overwhelmed or overworked and think I don't have time, it's like writing a list. You know how you write a list and all of a sudden it becomes clearer what you need to do and it stays with you that day? It's the same thing of like getting it down and working out what you're focusing on.
Yeah, I think the maybe 10, 12 years ago, it was always, we're going for a paperless society. But I very much doubt that. Like, still 12 years on, 13 years on from whenever that was like really the catch cry. My own system, and I see a lot of my clients as well, is future planning in digital, but then for bringing that into the day on paper to write it out, like, okay, what am I doing today? What are my meetings today? And just having that on paper to cross out and to get clear on what are my top 3. And so I definitely think there's always going to be space for paper, just because that writing connection is so important.
Yeah. I think it connects you to yourself so quickly.
Yes. Yeah. It's very grounding.
Yeah.
So a bit more of a philosophical question here, but do you think that like we journal in a way to leave a record of who we are, or to kind of track who we're becoming, or how does it relate to commemorating our time here on planet Earth?
Good question. Such a good question. I think it's all individual. Again, just because journaling is the most personal form of writing, and I feel like there are so many varied ways to do it. For me personally, I think it's more about who I'm becoming, because I'm noticing I don't go back to notice where I've been that much. Whereas I love my growth, and I can see my growth as a person as I look back over the years, and that's the part that lights me up the most, kind of thing.
Yeah, I really love that. Like, the more we're talking, the more. So my next question was about, as I said at the beginning, I have these 88 journals. Well, I've just started my 88th, and
88. That's amazing. I love it.
Since I was 11, like, I just, and the ones from when I was quite young are very they're not great. And there's some in those, I just really liked notebooks. So sometimes it's just like I've written huge on the page to get through the notebook so I can get to a new notebook. So there isn't, like, to be fair, those first maybe 10 or so could probably go very easily and I wouldn't miss them. There's nothing really in there that I would miss. But so I'm going to be moving house soon, and I'm somewhat originally from Canberra, so I have this whole stack of journals there at my parents' place, and I need to probably clear that at some stage and get them here. But I don't. I've been kind of on the fence. Do I keep them? Do I burn them? The more that I'm hearing you speak, I'm like, okay, maybe it's more on that focus of loving my growth and maybe letting it go. But as you say, it's all very individual. So I've heard of multiple people holding on to journals and referring back to them and even publishing them or whatnot. So such an individual take on it. But I'm interested to know, have you heard of any storage techniques, or what have people with a large collection, or even if they have decided it's time to let them go, what are some of the things you have heard people do to do that?
Well, so I have a journal community, which is every Saturday morning I facilitate a weekly journal session for them. And I have a couple of people in my journal community that, I kid you not, have a shredder under their desk, and they literally write on paper, and in it goes the moment they've finished journaling, because they've already got what they wanted out of it, and they don't want anyone else in their family or their life to ever come across it. So they're not wanting to store it at all, which I don't do at the moment, but I love that they're brave enough to just do that. At the moment, what I've been doing, which is something a little bit newer that I'm really enjoying, is every time I journal, at the end of it, on a document, like so, then I turn it into an Excel. It's on an Excel spreadsheet. I'm just recording the essence of what I journaled about, but my one main takeaway. And I'm loving seeing my own growth. And actually, it's helping me go, oh, I'm not going to need to keep my journal books, because at the moment I'm not throwing them out either. And maybe partly because I have a journal business, and so sometimes I dive back in to go, sometimes from my own journal entries, it inspires me for a theme or a content that I share with my own journal community. So for me, there's a little bit of hold on to that, just because I'm not sure where I might need it next. But I certainly don't hold on to it because I think I need to see where I was 10 years ago. I don't know if I've helped you at all, because I think you'll need to pick up your journals and like see how you feel as you go back through them, and then go, do I need this or not? Or, you know,
I really like milestones and things like that. So when in preparation for this chat, I was thinking maybe it's when I'm 50, I get rid of like 25 years worth, or you know, something a bit kind of almost romantic in that way, but then have a burning ceremony or something, but then that'd take a bit of planning. But yeah, it is I like that you've shared that about the shredding and just like the spectrum of what there is in journaling. Like it doesn't even have to be a notebook.
Because I also think to be mindful of, the only part I think to be mindful of when people are rereading their journal entries is the first part of any journaling, where you just freely take what's on your mind and get it down, can be all sorts of emotions and thoughts. And sometimes they're not even real. We think that they're real, but once you've questioned it, you're like, oh, hang on, I don't have to believe that anymore. I was just holding on to that old thing. So there's a little part of me that goes, is that actually helpful to reread some of your most darkest, most challenging moments over the growth that you've made? Like, so it's just being careful what emotions it evokes every time you go back to read.
Yes, that's a good point, because sometimes I'll write something and I'm like, oh, if this was found, I feel like I would launch into that Bridget Jones monologue.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. I'm really hoping I keep up this insight of a day kind of thing, and then a new sheet each year, and like looking back over sort of like my own growth that way, in a collated way, and then I can get rid of the actual journal entries.
Yeah, I like that. That's a really great idea, because then you're still respecting the growth and what's come out of that, but also kind of moving the other stuff along, and then minimizing what's in your space. And
And I've done the insight as well. The next column is the playful, or the action that I'll be taking, or the actual practical part that I'll do because of what I've learned. So I'm just seeing how often it comes up and how it changes, or how sometimes you want it to be the same because it's working.
Amazing. And so you have this this Saturday session. And then how else does your journaling take shape?
I run it for groups and organizations. So I do another weekly session for One Roof, the organization that supports female entrepreneurs, and which is how I met you, which was so beautiful. And then I do it for just all different organizations. From I did a session on the weekend for they were on a retreat, for addiction, Conrad, who runs an addiction coaching business. So that was supporting his retreat and things like that. So I do it for people who really care about their well-being, and having learning a tool that they can use to keep helping themselves to de-stress, gain clarity, and feel inspired to keep moving forward.
Incredible. It really is such an accessible and just amazing tool for us to access. Thank you so much, Ingrid. Is there anything else you'd like to let people know about? Any lasting thoughts? I think my head's kind of whirling a bit. I'm like, oh, I'm so excited about going through my 88 journals.
Oh, I cannot wait to hear what you think of them, or what you decide to do with them.
Yeah.
No, thank you so much for having me on. If anyone ever wants to find out more, they can find it out on my website. There's plenty of support there for journaling, and I just get so inspired of inspiring people to go, you can do it, you can make a shift, and it doesn't take long, but it's worth it. It's so worth it.
That's right. Yeah, doesn't take long. Just do it. Just try it out. Thank you.
Thank you so much.